Hello, everybody. Welcome to this series that we are starting today. We're very excited to have you all here. I would like to open today with an acknowledgement that we are here presenting virtually from Alberta, 100% of which is on treaty lands, Treaties 6, 7, 8, 4, 10, and the Métis homelands cover all Alberta, which is home to generations of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people who have deep connections and call home since time immemorial. We'd like to acknowledge and honor all of the elders of this land, past, present, and future, and all creation. Hi. Well, welcome everybody to our webinar today. We're excited to have you all here. This is something from the Allies for Youth Connections Steering Committee for the conference, we decided to do as we are unable to do the conference due to current circumstances. We are excited to do this as a bridge and bring people together for ongoing and continuous learning opportunities. This is a video that you will be watching first for the first hour today. After that, we will be doing a question and answer period. You can put your questions and answers into the Q&A box that's below on your screen there, and we will be moderating those as well. Myself, Heather Peddle, and my friend here, Lisa, will be moderating those, and we'll be following up at the end of the video. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to tune in here. I want to thank the Allies for Youth Connections Steering Committee for making this webinar possible and allowing me to share more about the Youth and Care Chronicles today. My name is Mierau, and as I just mentioned, I'm here today to share about the Youth and Care Chronicles, which the editorial team and I have spent the past 3 years compiling, and at its essence is a collection of stories, experiences, and reflections from 18 former youth in care, all in one anthology. And I have it in person here, so I'll show it to you. Here's the physical copies. So we're very excited to share this with you today. I am also here today presenting on behalf of the editorial team, which includes myself, Penny Fraser, our lead editor, Dr. Dorothy Badry, a professor at the University of Calgary, Erin Levesque, a research assistant through the University of Calgary, Cody Mierau, and Teresa Tucker-Wright. In terms of my connection to the project, I've been working in the field of social work for the last decade. I have my master's in social work, and I have a strong passion for supporting youth in care. I've been volunteering with Youth Speak Out, an Edmonton advocacy group for youth in care since around 2016. I also currently supervise a high-risk youth unit in Alberta, Edmonton Children's Services, and I teach for the University of Calgary and MacEwan University. So I was very excited to be a part of this project. Before we get started, we just have a disclaimer here that the ideas, views, and opinions in this book and presentation are those of the contributors and editorial team and do not represent the views of the Government of Alberta or Alberta Children's Services. We want to be clear that neither the Government of Alberta nor Alberta Children's Services provided any information in relation to the contents of this book. Also, all proceeds from the sales of the Youth and Care Chronicles will be invested in future projects to benefit youth in care. So some of the many important topics that I will be further discussing in this presentation include an overview and history of Youth and Care Chronicles book. So, what is it? Why is it important? How was it created? You're going to get all that background information. The experiences of youth in care and the unique challenges they face. So why youth enter care, what is child welfare, and just some statistics and outcomes. We'll also be chatting briefly about an overview of the themes identified from the former youth in care stories that really impact professional practice through the book's learning guide. We're also going to share that some of the lessons that we as an editorial team learned along the way about community organizing and grassroots publishing. Lots of good lessons there, let me tell you. And then one of our contributors, Shay, she'll be joining me to share her story of growing up in care, as well as her experiences contributing to the book itself. So I'm very excited to have Shay. Following this, we will allow some time for discussions and questions, which we always greatly appreciate. So please get your mind thinking about those now. So, what is the Youth in Care Chronicles? As I had mentioned earlier, simply put, it's a collection of stories, experiences, and reflections from 18 former youth in care. It's a reflection of a massive collaborative effort between the editorial team, the contributors, our amazing partner and sponsor, CanFASD, our consultant, Peter Smith, our partner for some of the artwork, the Adoption Council of Canada, our endorsers, supporters, and the many others who provided their assistance to this book. In terms of our contributors, the contributors to this book are wonderfully diverse and unique, each offering such a different perspective with some shared common experiences. The book offers a perspective on child welfare and growing up in care across a generation, with the contributors ranging in age from being newly 18 to being in their mid-40s. You really get a good kind of idea of the evolution of child welfare over the last couple decades. The contributors also range greatly in experience. You know, some of the contributors having lived in one placement most of their lives to, you know, some of our other contributors having lived in 30+ placements, so quite different. Also different in terms of age, sex, orientation, race, and culture. Although all the contributors are diverse and many cultures are represented in the child welfare system, I would be doing a disservice to everyone here if I didn't at least mention that the majority of youth in care are of Indigenous descent, and a number of our contributors share the impact of being just culturally impacted through their experience of being in care. We want to be clear that the book doesn't shy away from discussing the harsh realities of growing up in care, which can often include being separated from parents and siblings, bouncing from home to home, struggling with addictions and mental health, the loss of culture and identity, and loneliness. So it's very much real stories from real people. That being said, the book also highlights the significant and rarely shared successes of former youth in care, which includes them graduating from high school or post-secondary, working in various professions. We have a number of people in the book that are themselves now social workers, child and youth care workers, in the trades, EMS workers, foster caregivers, and so on, which is really amazing. Also, many of our contributors are raising their own children and supporting their families, and very much giving back to others. So it's a very amazing, just amazing to hear everyone's stories. It is also worth mentioning that several of our contributors are related and interconnected. One big example is that a mother and son share their story of rebuilding their relationship. As the mother, Linda, she was also in care herself. Such a powerful story. This story really touches on the impact of intergenerational trauma and experiences of growing up in care. And it's, as I said, very, very powerful. So although the book is primarily comprised of the stories from former youth in care, it also incorporates other meaningful elements that bring an unparalleled awareness to the unique youth in care experience, and it helps provide valuable insights and resources for practitioners. So this includes artwork, quotes from authors, relevant articles, statistics, and a glossary page. The final piece that really helps make the Youth in Care Chronicles what it is, which is an amazing book, but it's our learning guide. I won't comment too much on the learning guide as I'm going to elaborate further on that a bit later. So I also want to touch on, why is this book important? Well, there's many reasons why this book is of such significance and is so groundbreaking, but, provide a brief summary. For other youth in care, we hope this book helps spread awareness and letting them know they are not alone, that growing up in care is not a death sentence, and that their experiences do not define them, and that there are many other youth in care who are successful. To the best of our knowledge, there is little to nothing like this book that currently exists. We did tons of research to find similar projects and struggled to find any, particularly in Canada. All of the former youth in care contributors had a strong desire for their voice to be heard. And there are few opportunities for youth in care to be able to share their individual voice, and even fewer opportunities to share their voice as a collective. This book helps provide a platform for youth in care to share their voices in a thoughtful and meaningful way that also provides healing. For practitioners like myself, we hope this book helps spread awareness in terms of providing further insight into the youth in care experience, what works for youth in care and what may not work. This is all from their voice. We also hope that this book will be used to further inform best practice, policies, and legislation. So before I get into talking about the book itself, I want to speak briefly about why children and youth enter government care and what child welfare is, which is important in understanding the youth in care experience. Child welfare is a term that refers to the broader child welfare systems where a variety of services are provided to children, youth, and families under the authority of each province in Canada, which are designed to ensure that children and youth are safe from abuse and neglect, and that families have the necessary supports to care for children successfully. Child welfare authorities, they investigate and respond to allegations of abuse and neglect and provide care to children and youth in their care. Child abuse is typically defined as either physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. The names of child welfare authorities vary by each province or territory and depending on the jurisdiction. Typically, children and youth come into care as a last resort when a decision is made that children and youth are unsafe and when they are at imminent risk of substantial child abuse. We just wanted to share a slide here in terms of just some stats around children and youth in care. Unfortunately, youth in care typically have some of the poorest health and educational outcomes, as well as experience homelessness, suicide, and human trafficking at an increased and alarming rate compared to the general public. Some of the statistics here on the screen identify some of these impacts, and I should note that they're all Canadian statistics. I also want to note that in Alberta, 70% of youth in care are Indigenous, with that number actually being even higher in other provinces. So let's talk about the book. As mentioned earlier, the Youth in Care Chronicles is a project that's been in the works for the past 3 years, and I can say it's taken a massive collaborative effort to create. So if you're wondering, how did this get started? What's the genesis of this book itself? So prior to the book, several of our contributors volunteered with a local youth in care advocacy group where they shared their stories and experiences of growing up in care through panel presentations. And as many of these former youth in care contributors continue to speak publicly, interest in hearing these stories grew organically and rapidly, as you can imagine, as word spread about the impact that these presentations were having on practitioners and professionals at schools and I know that these folks presented to a lot of different organizations. The demand to hear these stories grew exponentially, and youth had started experiencing fatigue from repeatedly sharing their emotional stories and reliving their trauma. You know, to all of us who were a part of that process, it was clear that these presentations were, of course, very beneficial, but it just wasn't sustainable. Several of the contributors, including a member of the editorial team, Mierau, were able to come up with the idea of completing a book, as it was thought that a book would be a great way to avoid the issue of fatigue, and also provide a broader perspective on the youth and care experience and reach a greater number of people. So this is really where the journey of creating the Youth and Care Chronicles began. The group developed a detailed plan for the book, and with limited book writing experience, we all set out to learn all we could. The small initial group soon realized that we were out of our league with this kind of a project. This is when we were connected to Dr. Dorothy Badgery at the University of Calgary and CAN-FASD, which is a research network that is focused primarily on the impacts of fetal alcohol syndrome disorder. The group had determined that the best way to capture most of these stories were to interview each youth about their experience, transcribe the interview, and use the transcribed document to help create their story or chapter in the book. At this point, Penny, who was our lead editor with the project, became involved, and she was an integral part of the project. Penny's worked with Youth and Care for over 30 years, and she was previously a journalist and had experience with publishing, so she really had the experience needed to push this project forward. So throughout its inception, the book remained a youth-driven and voluntary process where every youth self-selected themselves to participate with the option to opt out at any time. There was no pressure to contribute or share more than they wanted to. The privacy of the contributors was also respected, as they could use pseudonyms, and the privacy of the workers and agencies and whoever else who had supported the youth while in care. This was also respected by not naming these individuals in the book. Through these elements and this process, many contributors had decided to participate, with 18 of them seeing the project through. You know, from an editorial standpoint, we met weekly to review the book's progress, discuss any changes, and assign next steps. The editorial team strived to ensure that all planning and decisions were made as a group, to ensure that we had the best planning, and so that we could divide the work based on each of our strengths, as you know, pay wasn't a factor, so definitely a lot of volunteer hours. You know, as an editorial team, even if we didn't have all the answers, things eventually came into place as we worked as a team to get the information we needed. So with a lot of hard work and determination, plus a fair bit of stress at times, we completed the book and we published it in November of 2020 to amazing reception, which I'll talk more about towards the end of the presentation here, sorry. So the heart and soul of the Youth and Care Chronicles is, of course, the valuable insights gained and lessons learned through the sharing of stories. With the majority of the book completed, the editorial team wanted to further support an understanding of youth and care, and you know, just enhance some maybe critical thinking for practitioners working with youth and care. So collaboratively, the team decided the best way to do this was to develop a learning guide to accompany the book. And so myself and two other members of the editorial team worked on bringing this learning guide to life. It's hoped that students and practitioners will be able to utilize the learning guide to better understand youth and care, adapt their approach when working with youth and care, be a better ally for them, and better support them. throughout this book and across these stories, there were 5 major themes that came up, and these themes were of relationships, advocacy, connections, transitions, and compassion. And these 5 stories actually came up in, or these 5 themes, sorry, actually came up in every story that was included in the book. You know, what we took away from this was that these 5 themes suggest that some of the most impactful work we can do as practitioners is understanding and meeting clients where they're at, sharing power whenever possible, being transparent and honest, and really adjusting our approach when needed to best meet the youth's needs. So next, I'm going to get into lessons learned here. Throughout this project, there were some very significant lessons learned, as you can imagine, that have some implications for those working with youth in care and for those of you that are interested in pursuing related projects with youth in care or other marginalized groups. There were many lessons learned, but we wanted to highlight a few that we believe are of particular importance. The first major lessons learned had to do with working with the contributors. In particular, we learned a lot through the interviews completed, and we learned a lot about the need for regular check-ins and what the draft copies of each youth story is required. In terms of the interviews, we learned through trial and error that giving the contributors the choice of how they wanted to put their story together was the best way to capture the contributor's story. And we made sure that if we were doing an interview process, that contributors had the questions in advance to prepare. A big finding was that many of the contributors struggled to write down their stories and actually preferred to be interviewed and have those interviews transcribed. We did have a few contributors, though, that did want to write their story themselves. You know, giving that freedom of choice gave the contributors control over their story and really assisted them as needed and ensured that their stories were directly from them and authentic. When the contributors shared their stories, that often had quite an emotional toll on the contributors and on the interviewer. This required a lot of patience, care, and compassion. In order to complete these interviews, trust and safety were prerequisites, as you can imagine. The relationships that the contributors had with the entire team, especially the editorial team, really helped ensure that the contributors felt safe and trusted the team with their stories. In terms of drafts, we really found that they were extremely time-consuming to complete and finalize. We found that on average, from start to finish, that it took about 15 to 20 hours for each contributor's story to be finalized, which is quite a lot of time. This includes the time it took for the interviewee to complete the interview, transcribe the interview with the use of transcribing software, revise the transcribed story into a draft, have the contributor review their draft and make any changes as needed, and having the draft edited by 2 editors to ensure that any grammatical errors are resolved. It was really important for us as an editorial team that the contributors be able to review their drafts to ensure that their story is portrayed in the way that they intended. We learned that overall, this process takes time, and it's really a back and forth process having the contributors review their drafts, as we needed to allow time for them to return the draft with changes and any follow-up that was needed. The next major lesson learned had to do with publishing. This required a lot of research to help the team understand what our options were and what was the best option given our circumstances and goals. It took many hours to identify all the various factors to help make the best decision for the group and the project. You know, the primary factors we considered in helping to make this decision included cost. We had a shoestring budget and no funds available by the completion of this project. So we learned that no many means few options. Accessibility was another factor. We considered what options would give us the greatest possible chance to reach the most amount of people with these stories. We considered ability, what is within our ability to pursue. We learned that going with a formal publisher could be very time consuming and it might add a lot of additional hurdles. We also factored in control, what options would give us control of the book and stories. We learned that if we went through a formal publisher, that the stories would not be owned by the team and that the book could be changed based on the publisher's discretion. And so that was a major worry for us as an editorial team. We also factored in goals. We considered all of our goals for the project, including the hope that any proceeds generated could be used to fund future youth and care projects. And so we really took that into consideration. And lastly, we considered agility. How quickly could we proceed with sharing these valuable stories? We definitely didn't want this book to be something that sat on a shelf waiting to be published. So, you know, in considering all of these factors, the group decided that the best option would be to pursue self-publishing, which had very little cost. It gave the team full control of the book and could be completed quickly. We explored quite a few self-publishing options, but the team collaboratively decided to proceed with Amazon's KDP publishing, which had no cost, gave the team complete control of the project, and you know, it was within our ability to navigate. It allowed the book to be available worldwide, and it also allowed us to share these stories quickly. We made the decision to support the needs and desires of the former youth at Care and our contributors first and foremost. The last sort of major lesson that we had learned had to do with working with a team and as part of a multidisciplinary team. You know, we learned that our team was very diverse in experiences, networks, perceptions, and strengths, which made this project well-rounded and possible. Despite our differences, our common goal was the glue that really kept everyone focused and passionate. A big factor was also some of the team members who were current employees of programs supporting youth in care. And so, you know, we really needed to navigate that conflict of interest and the impacts of this dual role very intentionally. As a mostly underfunded project, there were expenses to keep in mind. This included the cost of the contributor copies, which, you know, as an editorial team, we discussed and we decided that we would all pay for these copies and provide them to the contributors as a way to thank and honor them and their time. You know, in terms of us meeting as an editorial team, we worked on this project outside of work hours. We held weekly meetings and you know, we often had very tight turnarounds, so it was really important to check in, support, and communicate with one another. I think, you know, towards the end, our email inboxes were full. There was constantly emails going. The skills and experience varied across the team, including publishing history, technical backgrounds, and research backgrounds. Knowing each person's strengths and networks contributed to the overall project greatly. You know, in terms of our media, kind of our media plan, my partner is a journalist, and so I kind of relied on him to help us in terms of getting our story out there and reaching out to news companies. And so that was definitely an important piece, is knowing who else is in our network that we can tap on and rely on. With this and working within a team, adapting and being flexible was certainly a huge piece as well. You know, we had to constantly adapt to changing circumstances like losing and gaining new contributors, making additions to the book as we realized near the book's completion that they would be beneficial. Some of these additions included the learning guide, the glossary, transitions page, endorsements and statistics. You know, with each of these, we needed to learn how to best complete them and what would look good in the format of our book. The youth struggling to write down their stories and having to shift to interviews, that was a huge area where we needed to adapt and be flexible around. You know, throughout the duration of this project, it shifted and evolved over time. As some things we wanted to do, we learned we couldn't. And, you know, at other times, new opportunities arose. So it was really exciting and really kept us on our toes. So in terms of the book now and the impact and feedback after it's been published here in November, there's been some minor negative feedback, and it has generally involved some hurtful comments made directly to some contributors by family, most often, or some workers that have previously worked with them. So that's been a bit unfortunate. But despite the minor negative feedback, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive, and some of it has involved you know, we've sold, this says 700. I just found out this morning it's actually 800. So really exciting. We've sold about 800 copies of the book. We've helped spread the word organically through, you know, posting on social media, reaching out to our networks, and word of mouth. We've also been really lucky enough to receive some media interest, and we've completed some interviews with CBC, You Today, some radio interviews, some webinars, including this one, which is really great. And there'll be actually an article coming on the Ed Journal very soon here. We've also gotten feedback. There's been a few professors at different universities who are going to be implementing the book in their courses, which is fantastic. There's also been lots of feedback and impacts after the book was published, which is perhaps an additional lesson learned and something to consider for sure. So that's the end of our presentation here in terms of the book. You know, if you have any questions, comments, or you're looking for more info, you can reach out to Penny at pennyfraser.ca. That's a lot of pennies. And you know, if you're interested in purchasing a copy, you can go on Amazon here and just type in Youth and Care Chronicles, and it will definitely pop up for you. So we'll now be moving on to sharing the story of Shay, our contributor. So stay tuned. So welcome back, everyone. Thanks for staying tuned. I'm here joined by Shay, one of our lovely contributors. I am so excited to have Shay here today to talk about her experience in the book. Shay is just an amazing person. She's a gem. How long have we done public speaking together, Shay? Like 2 years?
It's been probably, I would say 2 or 3 years now. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. So, you know, Shay and I have done a lot of panels together, and, you know, we know each other quite well. So we're excited to now share with you folks. So to get started, Shay, let's start with maybe what your understanding is of why you came into care.
Okay, well, it's been a while since I've done this. So my understanding of why I came into care was both my parents were addicts. I was raising my brothers, and it was really a really toxic environment. My mother was really abusive. It was just a super, super toxic environment. Yeah, there was sporadic homelessness as well. There was a lot of things. So I advocated for myself to come into care when I was 13.
Thank you for sharing that. So my next question for you is, how many placements have you lived in, and how many schools have you attended? How has this, you know, generally affected you?
I've lived in, I think it was including like shelters and whatnot that I stayed in when I was homeless. I think I counted like 12 or something around there. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was quite a few places that I had lived in my time in care, including well, technically I'm still in care. So including now, it was probably between 12 and 20. It was something along those lines. And I counted 12 different schools in my life. The other question was how it affected me, right? It affected me very negatively in a lot of ways, and it affected me positively in a lot of ways as well. It affected me like negatively in the sense that like it's very hard even now for me to grow attachment to places, people, things. I have really bad attachment issues. I can't attach myself to anything or anyone. I was even having struggles with that with my daughter when I first had her. Now it's not a problem, but so it affected me negatively in that part. And with schooling, I didn't really do any of my schooling because I was bouncing around so much. And so I would act really bad in my school and lash out, get myself expelled, do different things because I didn't want people to know that I was dealing with homelessness. I was dealing with all these different parts of care. I didn't want people to see that side of me. So I made it seem as if I was leaving the schools on my terms and not waiting for me to get moved to the opposite side of the city. So I was not involved in very much school activities until I got involved into rugby and whatnot, but that's a different story.
Lots of different placements for you, Shay. I'm wondering if you could touch on what it was like staying in youth shelters. I think people would be interested to know more about that.
Well, I hadn't stayed in very many. I stayed in about I think I only actually stayed in one time. But other than that, it was terrible. I hated it. It was horrible, not a place for any child to be living in. I have a daughter now, so I wouldn't imagine my daughter being between the ages of 13 and 18 living in something like that. So it was not ideal whatsoever. Other than that, I was partying with people to go live at their stay at their places. I was around people that were not healthy for me, and I was getting myself arrested so that I would be in have a shelter for the night in holding cells, or even better, go to EYOC. So things like that. It was really, really difficult. It was not ideal whatsoever.
Thanks for expanding on that. I'm wondering maybe if you can share about what's going on in your life right now. I know there's a lot.
There's definitely a lot. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter now. I've maintained a steady home on my own for I've been on my own for a while, but I've maintained my home that I'm in right now for 1.5 years. So that's the longest I've been in a place for a while. I'm pretty proud of myself for that. I'm planning on staying for longer. I did recently start looking at new places, but then I was like, no, don't do that. There's nothing wrong with this one. Stay put. So yeah, I'm in school right now. I travel quite a bit. I love to travel. It's my favorite thing. COVID, it's not very ideal at the moment, but I love to travel. Yeah, I took my daughter to Mexico. Yeah, there's a lot of things that have been going on. I'm upgrading right now to go into dental hygiene, which is very exciting. So I'm thinking about actually moving to Ontario to take the dental hygiene program there. I'm looking more into that and doing more research on that. So
very exciting stuff. Well, it's amazing all that you're doing right now on top of raising your daughter. So maybe we can switch gears here and maybe just tell us generally, what was it like for you growing up in care, whether that be kinship care, foster care, group care, share the experiences you want to share.
Well, I was in one kinship placement, and then I was in group care at one point in time. I never was in a foster home placement, and I never was adopted. So I came into care when I was 13, as I said before. I advocated for myself to come into care, myself and my youngest brother. I have 5 brothers, but my youngest came into care with me. So for the first little while, I was actually homeless. when I first, I don't think I necessarily fully came into care when I was 13. It's really like a lot of it, my memory of it, I blocked out a lot of my memories of those certain situations, but I just remember having to wait for a judge to tell me that I wasn't in a safe place, even though it was obvious that I wasn't in a safe place. But so it was, I was homeless for a lot of the first parts, and then I finally got into a kinship placement, and that placement was actually pretty toxic. The boyfriend of the family friend that we were staying with was a severe alcoholic who would binge drink and stay drunk for like 7 days. So that was like, it was like me living with my dad. Like it was no different. So it was very, very difficult for me. And then I had workers who, well, like I had a worker and specifically who did not want to hear any of the bad things about the family. I would tell her bad things, but then she would only point out the good things that I was saying. And then she would sit and tell me stories about kids who have had it worse in care than I did. So I was just like, okay, so my voice is not heard here, I guess. Like, I don't know. So then I ended up homeless again, even though I had a home with the kinship placement. I was homeless. I was still living in the people's houses because I did not agree with what was going on. And I didn't know what other way to deal with it other than get drunk and get high. So it was really, really difficult for me. I felt as if I had no voice there. Even though I was a strong advocate, I still kind of felt like I was just getting like muzzled. So it was really difficult for that part. The group homes, I got pregnant while living in a group home. There was good parts and there was bad parts. Like they did teach me quite a bit of stuff at that group home, which I appreciated a lot. There was always food in the fridge, which I also appreciated. They got us what we wanted, which I always appreciated. And I had my own room that I could go home to, which in the kinship placement, I did not have my own room. I was imposing on another teenage girl that was my age. So feeling like that, like, and hearing when she argues with her mom, oh, like, why is she in my room? Like, blah, 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 like just feeling like an imposter on the family, right? So that was the one thing that was really different with living in a group home. It felt a little bit more like my own, a little bit, not very much, because it's obviously you're moving into someone else's home, but so that was a little bit better in some ways. I just remember like it was really difficult holidays. Like my 17th birthday, I was pregnant, and then right after was Christmas. I was alone with one other staff there, and we were driving around trying to find some place to eat because there was no food. It was literally Christmas, and I was alone. And I was like, it was a really, really low point for me in my. That was really, really, really hard on me. I just remember that being a very low point in my life was being alone on Christmas. But it was like a lot of the things there, it was really difficult because they wouldn't come up and ask you if you're okay, if you're like sitting up there crying or they hear anything. They just sit and write it down in a book, and you're just like, what the heck? And then I just remember this one worker, I was pregnant and I'm trying to get an allowance. So I'm out there shoveling. And then he's telling me that it's not done enough, that I have to take a pick and like literally sit out there for 2-3 hours to get a $10 allowance. It was like just absolutely just a lot of the things just like wow, just like I look back at it now, like then I was just like, oh, whatever. But now I sit and I could think about it and reflect on that, and I'm just like, that was not right.
How does it maybe impact the way you see yourself as a parent, or maybe the way you want to see yourself as a parent as your daughter grows older?
Right now it's really hard because I'm trying so hard to not be the people that have raised me, whether it be the kinship placements, whether it be the group home, whether it be my mom, my dad, whether it be like any of those things, that it's hard for me to know what to do. So I do struggle with that a lot. I've noticed it, and I've like I'm started working on it as a parent, but I know the parent that I want to be. I do want to be that patient parent who is always there for my daughter no matter what she does, never kicks her out of the house, because that is the most toxic thing I think parents could do. But yeah, like but I still want to be tough on her at the same time and teach her like to be humble, and even though she has so many things, that there's people that don't have that luxury. I don't want to shelter her, but I want to keep her innocence for as long as possible at the same time. So it's really hard finding that medium. And then it's just like, it's like when you have kids, especially when I was 17, I was 17 when I finally gave birth. So they don't come with a handbook. Like I remember I had her and she was laying in the tray beside me. They put them in a tray, and I forgot to put a diaper on her. So I like look over to check on her because she's crying, and there's like all this tarry stuff around her. I'm like, what happened to my baby? So I like rang the nurse. I'm like, what's going on? Like they were like, that's like the poop. Like you need to put a diaper on her. I was like, oh yeah. Okay. So it's been really, really difficult. And like I have supports kind of, but a lot of the workers back off more when you're 18, independent, and like doing on your craft. So it makes it kind of hard to like, you know what I mean, to know even what I can get for supports.
Yeah, definitely hard to balance, but I've seen you with your daughter and I can say you're nailing it. So, speaking of workers, can you tell us more about, the workers that you've had in your life? This can be a caseworker, an advocate, group home staff. Which ones stand out and why?
Well, I have had a ton of workers in my life, whether it be throughout You Speak Out, whether it be actual workers that are my workers, like, or advocates, workers that work in legal aid or things like that. So basically, I had some really good ones and then I had some really bad ones. So my first one, I would say, was terrible, horrible. I was 14 and he was paying for me to live with a boyfriend. Or no, 13. I think it was 13. He was paying for me to live with a boyfriend. 13 or 14, one of the two. Which I don't know if that's allowed, but I don't think it should be allowed. It doesn't sound like it'd be allowed because my daughter is definitely not going to live with a boyfriend at 14 years old. So, you know what I mean? And when you're a worker, I feel as if you need to be treating those kids as if they're your own because they don't have a parent to do that for them and making those decisions for them. So he was too invested, I feel like, in his own life. He wasn't in it for the bigger reason, which the bigger reason to be a social worker, I believe, should not be money, a career choice, just something random that you decided to do just because whatever. It should be to make a difference in people's lives and to help change the cycles of people's lives and to change the world, because that's what you'd be doing. And if you're okay, I'm not going to swear. I was about to swear. If you're a poop worker, I forgot this is not a panel. Usually on the panels, I can say whatever I want and people just laugh at me, but I don't know about this one. But if you're a poop worker, like you're making like a terrible impact on these kids, like especially being the first workers or the third workers. No matter where you come in, if you're a good worker, you're going to change that person's life for the better. And if you're a bad worker, you're definitely going to have a negative impact on that person's life. So I feel like people don't come into it with the right thing. But yeah, I've had some, like lately, like right now, I have some pretty amazing workers and I'm really happy with the support system that I have right now because they're very supportive of me, what I'm doing. And you know what I mean? Like there's never any problems with anything, and I can always come to them when I'm having issues and they give me an honest response, you know what I mean? So I'm really appreciative of what I have right now, but I know in the past it was really bad. And like even watching my brother's workers to like just to turn the gears a little bit, but I've had my brother's workers and I've been like close with them, and some of them was just like would not like care, and he has had almost as many workers as I've had, and he is 3 years old. He's my daughter's age. So I'm just like at a point where I'm sick of the bouncing around of workers and the inconsistency, which I get it, people get promoted, different things happen, but I'm just like, why take on a new case if you're planning on moving? Or why are people allowed to take on new cases if they know if the boss knows that they're gonna get promoted at some point in time in the near future? You know what I mean? It's just like inconsistencies with things. And then like I know when I try to communicate with like my brother's family support worker and whatnot, it is impossible. Like it is impossible because like it's not working really around my schedule to see him, and it's just like an impossible situation that happens, and it drives me bananas.
You've really summarized a lot of challenges, you know, in the system and overall really well, actually. I love that you think that, you know, workers can change the world. It's awesome. I love it. I think we can too.
I believe in it. I really do, because honestly, look at where a lot of addiction and all these things come from. Most of it comes from childhood problems. So you're getting these kids, like I was a troubled youth. I was terrible. I was in jail all the time. I was like, I made a complete different change in my life. Like I turned my whole life around upside down. Like if I even looked at myself a year ago now, I'd be like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, that's because I've had good workers who believed in me. I've had people like just supporting me, the utmost support. And you know what I mean? It's not just because I did it on my own, which I did do a lot of it on my own, but I have had that support. If I had negative workers that whole time, I guarantee you nothing would have came out of it.
Beautiful. It's nice to say, I think a lot of the people listening from home or wherever they are, they'll be professionals. So it's nice for them to hear that the work they do, it does matter, right? So
it does. It doesn't happen overnight. I tell you that right now, but it does help in the future.
Sure does. I'm going to shift us a bit here to talk about the book. What was this experience like for you? What was it like? I got the book here. I should find you in it. What was it like for you?
Oh my God, it was amazing. I just loved like being a part of something bigger, using my experiences to like try to do something different, make something different come out of it. Like, and I love that it's in textbook form, because honestly, oh my God, like people can write in it. They can, you know what I mean? Take notes, put sticky notes in there to the parts that they think are serious, highlighters, everything. They could ruin the book, make it their own in any which way, shape, or form. And I would just burst into tears because, oh my gosh, the amount of work that everyone put into it is amazing. Amazing. And how stressed, oh my God, Penny was so stressed out because they weren't releasing properly. And I was like, it's okay, calm down. Like, it's all right. She's like, I just want it to be done. Like, I'm so excited for it to come out. I'm like, it's okay. And then I got a little bit stressed at the end because I'm like, where's my copy? But it was just amazing to feel a part of something way bigger than like literally life itself. It was just amazing. And reading everyone's stories in there, it's so like, it's like heartwarming but heartbreaking at the same time. But like, it's just amazing to see where everyone is now in their lives. And like, I'm still like in La La Land about it. I look at it, I just put it on my coffee table and I'm like, anybody comes over, I'm like, yeah, this is my book. I'm in this book. If you want a signed copy, you can buy one off Amazon.
You're like, do you have a book? Oh, yeah, well, I have a book.
I have a book. Look, that's my picture right there. That's me when I was a baby, and that's me right now.
I love it. I love how excited you get talking about it. I was going to ask you, you know, what impact has it had being able to share your story in, you know, a written format? Like, what kind of feedback have you got about it?
I've had a little bit of negative because my dad, he's cleaned up his life way more now for my daughter than anything, but I still feel as if I'm his parent and I'm doing so much for him. I get him places, pay his damage deposit, like save money so I could do different things for him, you know what I mean? Get his groceries sent to him, all this stuff, different stuff. So I still feel as if I'm his parent, you know what I mean? Thank God he sobered up. He's an amazing grandfather to my daughter, and I will never ever take that away from him. But and there's still a lot of hurt there. So within my family members, I feel like they see another side to my story than I do, which they weren't there all the time. They don't know it. So a lot of the things that were said, I told them, this is how I seen it. And it might have been something completely different, but this is how I seen it. And this is how I felt. And this is how my emotions were and are. Because you guys have never changed it. You guys have never told me otherwise. I won't see the other side of it, and I wouldn't even talk about the other side of it because I'm going to say what I felt at the time, because that is how I felt, and that is still probably how I feel when I look back at the situation, right? So I got a little bit of backlash from my family here and there, and then which, you know, I was just like, honestly, read my story and embrace it, because this is how I seen things. And you know, you don't take out your feeling of regret on me because you didn't help me at the time. You know what I mean? And just be grateful that it's done and it's over with, because that's that. Like, so I've had like the negative, but oh my god, I've had so much positive impacts. So much positive impacts. Like, so many people have messaged me, look, I got the book, look, oh my god. And then I've had the, oh my god, I'm gonna cry because I just read it, blah blah blah. I'm like, don't cry, it's okay, I didn't even cry, like I'm okay. But yeah, I've had like, and then with my own feedback, I know reading it myself, I actually got a little bit emotional. I did. I talk about my story all the time, and it's easy for me to talk about my story, but I got emotional reading it, more so because it's like, wow, like I forget about a lot of things too, and then it brings up a lot of that trauma. So I have, needless to say, I have a therapy appointment booked in April. So
That's awesome. You know, I was gonna ask you, you know, with that, how was that CBC interview you did? I'm gonna
oh my god, it was
plug with that
nerve-wracking.
interview you did.
Oh, it was nerve-wracking. I was so scared. I was pacing around my house. I could even probably show you. I was like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all around my house the whole time. And I'm like, did I say something wrong? And I was like, oh my god, I said too many ums. Oh my god, did I say something wrong? And then they did hit me with a couple curveballs. So like, because when she does they do the pre-interview, they do like a 10-minute interview prep the day before. And then next thing you know, boom, you're there. And then they hit you with some questions and you're like, that's, you didn't tell me you were gonna say that. So now I'm a little lost here. But it was awesome. It was amazing. I was like, oh my god, I'm on the news.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Shay shared about our book on CBC Radio. So it's actually online if you want to go listen to it. Yeah, Jazz.
Yeah, there's also an article of it too. They wrote an article afterwards too, yeah. Oh my god, I was just like, and then I was like, those people freaking spelt my name wrong. So I emailed them.
Did they?
Yeah, I emailed them and I made them edit it because they messed up two things. So I was like, you need to fix this and you need to fix that.
Well, accuracy is important for journalism, so you know.
And then they fixed it, yeah.
Nice. You know, with you telling your story, I'm wondering, what would you tell other youth or adults or, you know, even children that may be afraid of sharing their story of being in care, or, you know, ashamed of being in care?
I would say one thing, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And, you know, it's honestly, it's where you come from. It's your roots. Like some people have their families as their roots. We came from literally nothing. Not even our own parents were able to love us in the way that we were needed. So I think it's a beautiful thing to come from care, because we are making it out of something, out of like odds that people couldn't even imagine. So I think it's a beautiful thing. And like, honestly, I would say don't share your story until you're absolutely ready, and make sure you have a good support system around you while you're doing it, because the first couple are the hardest. I can talk about it like it's nothing now. Like I could sit on the bus and tell everybody about my story if I wanted to right now and not really like bat an eye. But like I said, when it was in written form, now I'm like, okay, I need to go get some therapy. Like, maybe this wasn't real. Okay, yep. But no, I would say like the first couple times you share your story, especially in front of people, I feel like you need to have like either a therapist or people that you can lean back on, because you do get some like deep, dark thoughts in the beginning. That was my experience, though. It could be different for everyone, but my experience was like in the beginning, it's like, okay, I kind of like don't want to deal with this right now. Like, Okay, I'm kind of like, so you know me, I was blasting music afterwards every single time. That was my new thing. Me and you were blasting some rap music and we were bopping heads on the way out of there. Now it's COVID, so there's no more of that. But yeah, so I would say like honestly it's a beautiful thing, and like being ashamed of being in care, like I was for a very long time, and I was scared of people and what they would say about it. I ended up getting into fights because people that were my friends were running around telling the whole school about what was going on in my home life. So honestly, as a person who was ashamed, now I use it to my best leverage. I'm like, yeah, I was in care, so I didn't get nothing given to me. So let's talk about that.
Love it. You don't want to come up against Shay with the sass, man. No, no, no. ah. Well, I have one final question for you. Man, talking to you just goes by fast, hey? What is, one piece of advice or one takeaway that you want everyone here to remember? What should new professionals or even old professionals, what do they need to know, understand, and appreciate?
Oh, there's a couple things. I don't know if there's just one, but it's a little more than just one, maybe 1.5, maybe 2.5. I don't know, but I would say like honestly, we like kids in care. We have feelings. We are actually very emotional. We like to hide it with our secondary emotion, which is anger, a lot of the time. So we're not always angry. We don't hate you. We just hate our situation, and we hate ourselves for being in the situation most of the time, because a lot of the time when you're that young and your own parents can't love you, like I said, or as I said earlier, the way that they should, um, a lot of the times it makes it so we think that something wrong with us. So I feel as if like if you're working with youth, which most people watching this would be, you need to have the utmost empathy for anybody and anyone. You have to be doing it for the right reasons. And if you don't like what you're doing, leave. Seriously, leave. If you know you're not doing it right, if you don't like what you're doing, you don't like your job, and you're having a crappy home life, leave. Like find something new. Don't be scared to restart a career path, because you are literally like everyone that is working with children and youth in care, especially even the police force, they are making impact every day on these people's lives. So if you are not doing it for the right reasons, if your head is not in the game and you just really don't like your job, or you just really don't like your job, sorry, that's not meant to say, don't be scared to change your career path and go do something new, because you could be potentially ruining someone's life because of it, because you aren't enjoying yourself and you are taking it out on your work.
Very sage advice, Shay. Well, thank you for joining me today and for sharing your story. You are, like I said, just a phenomenal, strong woman, and I am so glad to have you in my life. So
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, so now we're gonna end here and we're gonna move over to the live portion of our webinar, and Shayna will be with you to answer any and all questions. So please fire away.
Okay, bye.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shay, for sharing your story with all of us today and for being here live and kind of in person for us to be able to ask lots of questions, and for Megan, for helping out bringing the story forward today. It was absolutely wonderful. So now we're just going to head into our Q&A portion of the event. We've got about 20 minutes or so time to answer some questions. So if you can post them in the Q&A link that's just at the bottom of your screen there, we'll be going through and getting those from there. So yeah, we have until about 12:55 today to do that with. So I think for me, Shay, I'm just going to start off here because I can see lots of stuff coming in the comments and in the Q&A. But one of the things that really stood out for me is how you talked about lots of different workers that you've had, and some were really not so great and some were really good. And I think that your team and your workers now are pretty good. And you feel, what I heard you say is you feel like they give you a really honest response. So can you help us, those of us that are sitting here today, what are some of the things that your workers, that your team do now? What are some of the words that they say? What are some of their actions that show you that they're honest and that you can trust them?
Sorry. I would like to say that, like, a lot of the people that are on my team now, what they do is they go over and above. They bend the rules. They don't break the rules, but they bend the rules. They push for me to be the best I can be, and they know when something is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I tend to shut down when something's going on and I don't talk to anybody, and I just kind of like get into my own world, and my workers notice that. My workers, like, they realize, okay, something is going on. Shay is not the normal Shay right now. We need to, figure out what's going on. So then they push harder, and they know just the right buttons to push with me to get me to get going and get back in gear. And that's what I really appreciate about, like, my workers and my team now, is that they understand me too. They don't judge me. Let's say anything could be going on in my life, anything at any point in time, and they're not going to sit there and judge me for what I'm doing or talk down on me because of it. And I can be completely honest with them, and I don't get bit in the ass over it. You know what I mean? Because they know exactly what I mean when I'm talking to them. So it's just I really appreciate the what we've set up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shay. We're having a lot of questions come in with those kind of similar things about what makes a difference. And just to switch gears a little bit on a question here, but kind of in that same theme, in regards to placements for young people, what kinds of placements or places where you would live have helped you the most? And what was it about those placements that made it more settling, or if it could feel like home? And when we talk about the attachment piece, if it could feel like home, or those types of things, what would make a placement in a way that would make it feel safe and comfortable for you, maybe, is the best way to describe it.
Well, I lived in a group home setting, and there's always, with group homes, you get the good and you get the bad. But like, when it was the good parts of the group home setting, I felt comfortable, and I felt like I could be around, like, because like I felt like the people that were there at certain points in times actually cared. You know what I mean? They weren't just sitting there to get a paycheck, sitting in the office all day, not doing anything, not trying to communicate with us, just writing down in a book when we go take a poop, for lack of a better word. So like, honestly, I'm just like, I would have the ones where they would come and knock on my door and be like, hey, let's go do this. Let's go. Like, I seen you've been sitting in your room all day. I heard you crying. Let's go. Like, let's get moving. Like, I had a couple that were like that, and I love that. Like, and that's just the type of person I am. Not everyone needs to be pushed like me, but so that was what made me feel. I didn't really, honestly though, when I say in any of my placements, I didn't feel at home. And I still kind of have trouble connecting myself to my home, even though I've lived here for almost 2 years now. I've had to force myself, especially in the most recent months. I'm looking at places, I'm like, oh, I can move here, I can afford this, I can do this. And I'm like, I need to stop moving. I need to try to break the cycle, because I don't want to be moving around and jumping from place to place all the time anymore. You know what I mean? I'm growing up. I need to be able to learn to attach myself to something for once.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shay. One of the next questions that's kind of come up here that hits for me is if you could maybe just share a little bit about some of the most impactful ways that you remember workers being able to support you, things that they've done where you felt really supported.
Well, I know I have this one. I'm not saying any names, obviously, but I have this one worker right now currently. she's my youth worker. And I remember when I first met her, I still think about it. When I first met her, I forget who I don't know if it was just her that I was with, but I was just going to court. And this is my first time meeting her. She's taking me to a court date. And I walk out of that place yelling, saying every swear in the book. I'm like, F this place, I'm doing this, just going crazy. And when I tell you, she sat there and she looked at me and said, isn't there like anything nice you can say about the situation? And I was like, hell no, just still going off. I was mad at her. I was like, I don't want her to, I remember even saying, I don't want her to be my worker anymore. Like, what the hell you guys give me like this positive person for? Get her out of here. You know what I mean? And now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, like she really stuck with me through that. She is amazing. Like, and she is like, she's held on to my file. She's not even in the same thing anymore, but she's held on to my file for this long. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm just like appreciative of like, there's a lot of impactful things, like little things here and there that still stick out to me. So I can't just pinpoint one, because there's so many, and so many people have come into my life and just like showed me something completely different. You know what I mean? Like, I loved when my current caseworker right now sat and told me about her sister and like the struggles that her sister had went through, which were similar to mine, and how well she's doing now. You know what I mean? I like that, having that connection on that level, and not feeling like, okay, me and you are professionals, you're doing your job, and you are just, this is what you're getting paid for, is to worry about me. You know what I mean?
Thank you. So Shay, we have some police officers in attendance here, and one of the things that was brought forward was, you mentioned earlier on that you've had involvement with police in the criminal justice system. What advice would you give to officers who come in contact with youth in care?
Oh, this one, oh, you guys didn't tell me this was going to be happening. I'd have some things written down. I'd have no offense, guys. Don't leave me yet, okay? Don't leave me. Honestly, there was so much. Every time I would get arrested, I felt like, you know, I would just get like, felt disrespected all the time. Like, and they didn't understand what I was going through, because don't get me wrong, respect usually is a two-way street, and I wasn't respecting them. But the things that I was going through at the time, okay, let's just talk about the good. How about we do that? Okay, so there was one police officer. He came to a domestic dispute with me and my mother. And like, he was responding to a call. And most of the times when that happens, like the cops try to take she would try to take my mother's side, because before she was in a really bad addiction, like as she is now. She was always in addiction, but she wasn't as like, it wasn't as serious. She was good at hiding it. So a lot of the times that they would come to the domestic disputes, it was like, I felt like I was the one doing the wrong, even though I learned how to fight back, if that makes sense. And this one cop he came in, took me out of the house while I'm freaked out. Like, I'm just mad. You know what I mean? Took me to the back of the car. I thought, oh, I'm going to fucking jail. Like, oh, sorry, I swore. I'm sorry. My bad, guys, my bad. Okay, anyways, I got a bit of a potty mouth. Okay, so basically, I thought I was going to jail for sure. I thought he was going to take me to the holding cells. I thought I was going to be sitting in there for 24 hours. I thought, you know, I was like, oh, here we go. At least like let me change my clothes first, because it was cold in there. You know, the holding cells are cold as heck. Like freezing. Anyways, so he ended up telling me about his dad, who was an alcoholic, and how his dad would sit, and his dad was abusive, and you know, the things that he had to go through growing up. And he sat and he actually like this, and knowing I was such a hothead then, but thinking back on it, I still remember this. So that means it went through my head at the time. And him telling me, I didn't change right away, obviously, after he told me this, but it does stick with me to this day. And him telling me that I could do something different with my life. You know what I mean? Like, that still sticks with me to this day, because he actually changed my view on all police officers. You know what I mean? I still have a view about some, but but there's bad in everything. Anyways, so yeah, that really like changed. Like he had empathy, like serious empathy, that really like I just was like, oh my gosh, this cop is sitting here telling me about himself even. Like, I don't know. It felt really good. And I still, like I said, I still think about that to this day.
That's awesome. Thank you. And yeah, we're not on live TV, so don't apologize for the potty mouth. We all do it once in a while. So you're all good, ladies. And I just want to stick on that theme a little bit, just in terms of some interactions and some advocacy within justice systems. I've seen a comment come in here. We have somebody joining us from the United States today. So that's how far your reach and your story is being heard, lady. You should be so proud. And the comment or the question is just around sort of that advice for somebody. What advice would you give to somebody that works as an advocate within our justice systems? What are some really important things maybe that they need to know that would be helpful, helping youth navigate those systems, or helping to empower them as they're going through those systems, or just to get through those systems?
You know what I believe is that, like I said, anyone that comes into contact with kids in care have a huge impact with them, no matter whether they believe it or not, or they think so or not, whether it be a police officer, a person working at a grocery store, a fast food worker, a bus driver. We all come into care, we come into contact, teachers, everything. We all come into contact with people that have lived in care at all times. And you know, the people that in care that I know are some of the strongest people I know, but we also have breaking points at the same time. Oh gosh. Sorry guys, can you hear me again? Stupid batteries, I swear, why do they die? Okay, anyways, so basically I just think that, like, within the justice system, when I was going through all that, I got arrested quite a few times just because I needed a place to sleep. Like, I went and did illegal things and purposely got caught so that I could go sleep in holding cells and have something to eat for the night. So, and I was fighting. All my assault charges were stemming from me being angry and not dealing with my emotions the proper way. And like, you know, it would have been nice to have some people notice that and, like, you know what I mean, like, try to do something about it. But it was just like, I was going back to the same court, seeing the same judges, seeing the same lawyers, repeating the same cycle over and over and over again. I remember I went to EYOC, and as I was leaving there, one of the guards told me, "You will be back." And, you know, some people that might affect in the wrong way, but I said, oh, hell no, I am not coming back here. Hell no, I am sorry. I don't got time for that. So I did not go back. I didn't. And, you know, I just think that when dealing with people in the justice system as well, and kids going through things like this, normally this is not what their life is supposed to be looking like. They're just finding their ways to deal and cope and manage. We're not bad people. We are not all bad people. Just because our parents didn't want us doesn't make us bad people. That just means that we are special in the mere fact that we were put on this earth to have a different type of life, something that other people might not be able to handle.
Thank you. There's a question here that I think is quite interesting that maybe you could give your perspective on. Do you have any advice for what workers can do when a youth are in a place where they aren't ready yet for positive change? What would be the best way to support them?
Give them a Narcan kit, teach them safe sex, and just let them go. I get it. I'm sorry, but give them a pack of condoms, teach them, and just let them do it, because they're going to do it anyways. Because I'll tell you right now, I was that one and 16 and pregnant. So Narcan and condoms.
How would, as workers then, as we go through that process of just creating safety, absolutely, is there something that we could do, maybe even to just kind of help plant seeds?
Oh, just as long as you tell them they're amazing all the time, and let them know, like, they got to know, because if you're sitting there looking down on them and being like, you're doing drugs again, like, what are you doing? Like, just let them know that they're amazing, and then there's something else, and then when they're ready, they can change, and there's options and there's things for them. Like, showing them a future as they're going through all that will let them, when they're ready to do it, change and be like, oh my gosh, I can do something. You know, I can be something great. I can go to the freaking moon if I want to. Nothing that I went through can hold me back. So as long as you sit there and you like push them. I'm sorry, I'm the one that needs the most pushing, but I don't know about everyone else, but I know I needed the pushing, and I needed the words to be spoken to tell me you are beautiful, you are amazing. And every time they called me a star, I was just like, even though I was doing bad, I was just like, tell me more, please.
That's some really good advice. And I think, so there's been a few questions that I'm going to try and pose into one. So hopefully it makes sense for you. And Megan, I might even pull you into this one too, as somebody who
Megan, get your butt in here, girl.
Right? Who works, right? And supports a team of workers as well. And so one of the things that lots of workers deal with, and it's not a youth problem, it's not a kid problem, it's a system problem, right? That we don't have enough time in the day, we have constraints within our system, we have what we would say is way too much work to do every day and just not enough time to do it all. And I know lots of workers feel a lot of pressure, and they do want to be able to be very responsive and be there with their youth all of the time and support them when they need to, but it's not always possible. So, do you have any thoughts or suggestions, either of you, just in regards to like, what advice would you give to workers that are struggling with those scenarios, how to maybe help them prioritize? And if they did have to say to you, I can't do that right now, what's a good way to say that, to let you know that?
Well, I know, like, being a worker, I would not be able to do it. I honestly, so I take my hat off to y'all, because I do not have the patience. I would want all the resources. I'd be fighting with the government every day. I'd be fighting with my bosses. I just end up getting fired probably on the second day, because I'd say, hell no, I am spending this money on her and I'm doing this. I don't care what y'all say. So I'd probably end up getting fired really fast. I honestly have, it's hard to say, sorry. I just honestly think there is a lot against, like, a lot of things. The system is built against poor people, people in care, people with disabilities. The system is built against all the people that they don't think are going to make them rich, or the government, in my opinion. So I honestly I think like helping them find those resources that they could do, doing something in the meantime. Oh, that's a tough question. That is a really good question. Megan, help me out here, man. What you doing? I'm struggling over here, stuttering and stuff.
Okay, I'm here. I got you. If there's just one thing I could impart, it's just be there. Like, I think we get so wrapped up in our work, and I supervise a youth unit. I see my staff. We're so busy. We're constantly so busy that when we're with the kids, we're not always present. And so for me, that big piece is just being there. And when you're there, you're there. And Shay's very intuitive. These young people are very intuitive. They know when you're not checked in. So I know it's hard because you've got 1,000 things going on, but just be there, be present. And if there's one thing you're going to focus on, make it the relationship. That's really what matters. How's that, Shay? Good?
Yeah, I'll add to that. There we go. Thank you. Let me just add a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, and along with that, it's like, yeah, we know when something's going on. I remember my youth worker, she got married, and this woman sat there the whole time in the car when I came in. Or no, she got engaged. This is when she got engaged. I got in the car. This is before COVID. Don't worry, guys. I'm not, we're not doing that. So nobody get mad over there. Okay. So this is before COVID though. I got in the car and she's asking me about her. So I'm sitting there talking for like 30 minutes. And then I look over and I see a ring on her hand. And I said, girl, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you start off with that? Let me just sit here go out. She said, I wanted to hear about you. No, I wanted to hear about you getting married. Like, what? So like, it's just, we know, we do know, we feel it when you are not in the game. And if there's too much going on in your life that you don't feel as if you can handle this type of work, then literally leave. I'm sorry, be broke for a while, do whatever you have to do, take out another student loan, but leave. Gosh.
Okay, I'm gonna, for the last question here, and we do apologize. There's been so many questions that have come through. We've really tried to pull them all together here. It's kind of piggybacking a little bit off of Lisa's amazing way to pull together a whole bunch of questions there, but with a worker in their role, how would you recommend that they can communicate their limits to a client in a non-harmful way, but just in a gentle way when they ask for something that they're not able to do?
Don't do it in the non-harmful way. Just be blunt. Just say it. Don't sugarcoat it. Just be like, dude, just, okay, actually, no, you guys work for the government. I can't say anything about the government on here. I'll be getting in trouble. Someone will come knocking at my door. Just say the government is against you. We can't do that for you right now. I'm sorry, but I'll figure out a way that I could try to figure something out. That's all you got to say. You don't got to sugarcoat it. We've been through way worse than getting told no.
I like that, Shay. I like the piece around being transparent, because I think people are sometimes afraid to do that as workers. So,
well, then you tell me maybe you're going to have me sitting at home laying in bed thinking it's going to happen when you know damn well it's not going to happen.
Yep. Transparency.
And that's the worst thing you can do to a kid in care, is have them disappointed.
Yeah.
That's the best. That's the quickest way you're going to lose their trust.
Yeah, that direct and honest, right? Just tell me how it is.
Tell me how it is and I'll live with it. At least you were being honest.
Yeah, for sure. So I know Heather said that was the last one because I had said it was looking at our time, but I think we can maybe squeeze one more in here if we're okay with that. So don't hate me, everybody.
They better be okay.
Right? That's kind of how I feel too. Because there's just been some other themes coming up just in regards to kind of like family and relationships with people. And so I guess, you know, again, to kind of mush a few of them together, and hopefully I don't butcher them all too badly. You know, but you've talked in your story about relationship with family and how that's impacted your ability to attach and build relationships. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, where things, if you're comfortable, where things are at, you know, with relationship with your family right now, and how is your ability to form attachments and build relationships? How would you describe how that's evolved over time?
This was gonna make me tear up. Well, my attachment, sorry guys, I don't ever cry. My attachments, I'm terrible at building attachments. I am terrible because it's either I am overly attached and it's like serious, or and which is for the most part not happening, or it's I can't attach whatsoever. I had troubles attaching myself to my daughter. I felt my daughter was temporary when I first had her. And as for my relationship with my family, I don't really have that great of a relationship with my family. Like I'm working on it. I'm trying to forgive my dad. My dad recently, I was told recently that my dad has dementia. So in my process of trying to, in my process of trying to forgive him, I still hold a hatred for him, and I don't want to do that anymore. And with my mom, I don't feel as if my mom will change. My mom's met my daughter like once or twice, and my daughter's almost 3. And my little brothers, I rarely ever see them. I'm not like allowed to because of their dad. And then with my youngest brother in foster care, it's really hard to keep a connection with him because I'm also super very busy, and I know the foster parents, I don't want to bug them too much. So sorry, I don't ever usually cry.
It's okay. It's okay.
but yeah, it's been really, really difficult. It's been a long road, and I still have a long way to go. But I'm really trying my best, and I'm really hoping that it'll get better soon.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Shay. If I could just take a moment and just reflect on that maybe a little bit. And if we think about just a little bit of a follow-up from that here, there are some things I would say that you have done very well, because we hear Megan talk about how well you do with your daughter. So that was said to you. So if you can just take a moment and reflect a little bit on what is the one thing that you've been able to do to help build on that you see yourself doing in a positive way, that when you're with your daughter, you know you're doing that. So if you can just reflect on that for a little bit for us, because there are things, and maybe Megan can help you a little bit with that, because I can tell she can see that as well. And we have someone here named Melanie who says you're a star.
Thank you, Melanie.
So, so maybe if you can just take a moment and just reflect on that, on what it is that you do now that's different.
So when I first had her, I was really, really struggling. I was really struggling. Like, even, postpartum depression is a son of a gun. I'll say that much. It is terrible. And postpartum anxiety it was really bad. But after I left that abusive relationship that I was in and started focusing on me and my daughter, at first I was like going out partying and stuff. I just turned 18. So I was going to the clubs. I was, just going crazy. And then I noticed I'm very hard on myself as a mother. I think I'm the hardest on myself than anybody else is to me, because I take everything that people say, you know what I mean? And I shouldn't. I'm working on not giving a shit what other people say, but it still kind of gives me, like, I'm the type of person, I want to make everybody happy. Don't ask me why, because it's not going to ever happen. But I notice now that my daughter is she's super smart. She is so happy, the happiest little bundle of running around and trying to do my makeup. And she is just, she is just the happiest little girl ever. And I honestly think that's something that I'm doing right, is just keeping her happy and making sure I'm working on like maintaining her innocence, but at the same time exposing her to things that are real, and that so she's not that sheltered, like, you know what I mean, uneducated, you know what I mean. She needs to know there is racism in this world. There is people that, she is very light skinned, but she is Métis, and she needs to be proud of that. She needs to be proud of her culture and where she came from, and that because some people say that she is not good enough because she's Métis, that she's amazing. Métis people are better than anything. I love Aboriginal people, but because that's most of some of my best friends, because they're just freaking amazing. They're so funny. Anyways, but yeah, like, I just, like, I don't know, I think I've been doing very well in trying to like let her be that happy kid that can do what she wants and feel free and, feel comfortable in her home and things like that. But at the same time, teaching her manners. She says thank you all the time, and she says please when she's asking for something. And I'm just like, yes baby, you're smart. You know what I mean? So I think those are the things I've been doing good.
That's awesome. So I'm just looking at our time here, and we're starting to go a little bit over. So I think we will kind of end it in terms of questions at that point. So we are going to post a poll for everybody. It's got, I think, about 3 questions on it. If you wouldn't mind, before you log off today, just taking the time to fill that out for us, because it's going to help influence, some of the future webinars that we're able to do. So I'll give you a couple minutes or I guess maybe about a minute or so to do that. And Shay, while people are doing that, I just really want to reiterate what everybody is saying. I'm not sure, you probably haven't been seeing, but comments are just coming in, and even from the start when the video was going, just about how strong you are and how amazing you are and how proud people are, and just so much thankfulness for you being here today to share your story and to share your journey with us, and to be able to, for people to take it back and have it be an influence on, you know, how they practice and how they interact with young people. So again, just from everybody, you know, on our panel and in attendance today, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us. We're very lucky to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And so just before we wrap up here today, so just so everybody knows, this is the first of hopefully what is to be many of these upcoming webinars from the Allies for Youth conference. So just keep an eye out. We do have our website, so a4yc.ca, Facebook, Instagram. We'll be sharing the upcoming information on those avenues, so take a look. We also will be sending out an email to those that registered as participants today with the slides from today's presentation, as well as just a feedback form for us. So if you can take the time to do that survey for us, that would be wonderful. Yeah, I think that's all we got for today. So again, you know, Megan and Shay, thanks for being here with us and for spending the time, and for everybody who logged on and participated. Thank you for taking the time out of your days to be with us, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.